The Immersion Foundation presents deep conversation with ambassadors on the cutting edge of combative arts as part of a greater mission to revive the study of haploology through research, expeditions, and archival projects around the world. The Immersion Foundation combines rigorous academic research with hands-on immersion in the combative arts and elite performance training, forging a new path of growth, adventure, and contribution.
All right, super Chris. We're getting into the second part of the fourth major principle, which is the be ready, willing, and able. We covered the first five pieces, which were prepare yourself, the cultivate tools and performance skills, how we combine principle and technique, turning on and tuning in, and the all theory connection, which was fun, and then how to maintain that ready position. So that's where we had closed off, and we've left the next four for today. So with that, if you want to kick off the piece of around, I think it's yin and yang and how that plays in, super Chris.
Well, as you said, we went through them, and I think we left off, like you said, with the dynamic, maintaining a dynamic ready position. So the next sub principle, if you will, was the idea of timing, and developing a good sense of timing in what you do, and there's different definitions of it, but the basic thing is timing is recognizing the best or most opportunistic or propitious moment in which to do something. Now, for a martial artist, it might be throwing a particular punch or kick, or going in for a particular takedown. The thing is that you read all of the old boxing books and the old things like that. And boxing, the art of successful hitting is good timing, and that the secret of a successful and powerful blow lies not in weight, but in timing, in the timing of the landing of the blow, the timing in launching an attack. So if a martial artist has poor timing, they can have all of the technique in the world. They can have massive power, but if they're always out of time, or not in time, or with a good sense of time, then it's it doesn't work for them. Good timing good timing lowers the energy that is required in order to do something, as we said, like landing a very strong, powerful blow. If you time that so it lands right as that opponent's force is moving towards you, it doubles the impact of again, like a car hitting a wall at 25 miles an hour is one thing. Two cars coming at each other at 25 miles an hour and connecting, it's something totally different. So in a martial arts perspective, timing is about recognizing the moment for that, an offensive action, a counter action. If you have poor timing, as we talked about with distance, and the opponent has good timing, then you turn the game over to them to be able to do things. When we go into personal realms of doing it, good timing is like choosing the right moment to go after this particular job, or possibly the right moment in which to say something in which you're involved in a relationship or a discussion with a person. We all know that if you might say the right thing, but if you say it at the wrong time, it is not successful, or it can have detrimental effects. So that's the whole point behind timing. When you get to timing, it is that propitious moment we were talking about. It may be something that occurs naturally in the course of events, the sparring, the combative situation, or it may be something that moment may be something that's specifically created by you, or that timing. The timing may be created by you through your actions. It may be created by the opponent, by either their actions or their lack of actions. So it may be that moment may be something that you can see physically, a moment of openness, or you might have to feel it. It's so again, there's what we call physical vision, if you will, and then there's psychological vision, and so it's a matter of sensing it. So timing can be set up by you, or it can be set up by somebody else. It is something that one either sees or senses or feels. Again, when we've talked about tactile awareness, right? That's a perfect example of you don't see it, you feel it. So that becomes the moment when you go in, things of that nature. So I think it's an integral part of any martial art. Any martial art style, even, and not even any combative art, boxing, fencing, judo, developing a good sense of timing is an essential part of developing your combative arsenal, so to speak. How does one do that? Well, again, experience. One thing is to sharpen or develop your perceptual sensibilities, your ability to recognize these motions, when they do occur. Another thing is to go back to this dynamic ready position, to be in a state of readiness, or a position of readiness at all times, or to be able to take advantage of that moment when it occurs, and then again, they all link together. Make sure that you have the tools or skills that will be used to take advantage of that opportunity. Again, you get this perfect opportune moment, but you don't have the skills. It becomes less than efficient. So I think that, timing, we talked about, they all interrelate. Timing and distance, timing and speed. They don't sit separate. They're all interconnected, and they all interrelate. And so, again, that's why I think timing is probably one of the most important aspects of any martial arts training. So,
Yeah, completely agree. I think when I think of timing, I just think of it as, you, like you said, you can't separate it from distance and speed. And even in the old arts, they would always talk about and managing your distance. What are they really saying? So managing your timing and the relationship between what you can do and what the other person does.
Yeah. Well, again, we go back to that same thing as we talked about. If you have poor timing and the opponent has good timing, you're at a distinct disadvantage. Yeah, you're at a distinct disadvantage of being able to take care of this stuff. So,
right. So martially speaking, how does JKD and how do you work on developing superior timing? What has worked for you and advice that you would give somebody who's looking to sharpen that particular attribute?
Well, again, I have a number of training protocols that I use to develop to help the student cultivate a sense of timing. There are exercises or drills that I will have them do to, for example, take one particular strike or whatever it is, and I will have them work it timing an opponent as they move forward. I will have them work that technique as the opponent moves back or moves offline. I will work it as the opponent changes body position. So, and then I have a lot of awareness drills that I do because as I've mentioned that awareness is such an integral part of Jeet Do, but was always such an integral part from the moment I began. We were always doing awareness drills, usually at the beginning of a class. Whether it was auditory, visual, the tactile came with, again, the trapping, the drills that you use to develop that. So part of it is seeing the student, and if they're having an issue with timing, is it a physical issue? That they don't have the footwork, or they don't have the mobility that allows them to get there. Is it a mental one that they're unable to focus, or a lack of awareness? So you examine it, you see it, and then you come up with protocols. I think I go back to that idea that you, as a teacher, you're only limited by your imagination. So as a teacher, I'm consistently looking and analyzing from other athletic endeavors, so to speak. Okay, how did these guys work the timing? Why did they do it this way? And then the bottom line is the individual has to do the work. I can give them all of the material. Here it is. If you don't do the work that's required, as we talked about, right? I can show you how to time this, how to hit this person as they move forward. You have to go. You have to do the work to get the results. So yeah, it's a training process. It's an integral part of it, and that's honestly what I do in so much of my teaching. The techniques, okay, yes, one needs certain ones, but it's in the training methods of how and the when and the why and things like that. So that's where I put a tremendous amount of my time, as a teacher. And you will see these things in other martial arts, and you will see other martial artists that have incredible senses of timing. That's great. I always tell my student, well, that's great. They have it. What do you have, right? And how are you going to develop your sense of timing? So, it's up to them.
So,
yeah.
Where do we go from there? The next sub-principle, so to speak.
Well, we went from timing. Now we go to rhythm, right? Which again it's a very integral part of martial art, because the martial artists who can control the rhythm of controls the pace of the fight, right? They can speed it up. It gives them a distinct advantage over the opponent because they can speed it up. They can slow it down. They can change the speed of their actions. They can take a simple, for example, a simple 3-punch combination, a lead straight, a rear cross, and a lead hook, for example, and they can use it in multiple rhythms, different ones. So that gives them a distinctive advantage of it. So it's a very, very important part of again, any martial artist's toolbox. Cultivate a sense of rhythm. Um, some people think that they don't have a sense of rhythm. I mean, maybe they don't, but we're not talking about maybe dancing here or what. But the bottom thing is we all have rhythm. Our bodies have rhythms. Our heartbeat is a rhythm. Our breathing is a rhythm. The way we walk is a rhythm. So you know, those are our personal rhythms. So, personal rhythms, yeah, obviously, what the ones I'm talking about are the body, right? In terms of breathing and heartbeats, but we have our own particular rhythms at which we do something or do things. Like as I said, walking, jogging, and those rhythms may change at different times. So knowing that, becoming aware of what your personal rhythms are, once you're aware of it, you can adjust it and things like that. So you have personal rhythms, right? And then you have shared rhythms, and shared rhythms are the rhythms that you share with somebody else who you are either in a direct relationship, discussing things with, working with, things of that nature, right? Interactions with other people, co-workers, sports team members, things of that nature. That is you working in sync or in a rhythmic sense with those other people. So one has to look at personal rhythms, and then one has to look at shared rhythms. When rhythm goes askew, man, especially, well, if rhythm goes askew within yourself, you can kind of lose yourself and lose your actions, and things just go to hell in a handbasket. If you get out of sync, out of rhythm with the person you're dealing with, a loved one, a spouse, or whatever, things can go sideways, or seem to go sideways. So out of sync, out of rhythm, those that are happened. So we're talking about finding your sense of rhythm, finding your personal sense of rhythm, being able to adjust your rhythm when you're involved with other individuals in a shared rhythm. And sometimes when you're involved with others, or it may be a situation where one has to impose the rhythm. So again, if you're a martial artist and you can impose the rhythm on the fight, then you can control it. I use the analogy that sometimes imposing a rhythm is necessary. If a firefighter goes into a building and has to get people out, or a police officer or something like that, they can't just say, "Oh, just everybody go at your own pace." They're like, "Okay, I need everybody to move now. You have to move now. We need to move quickly." So it may be necessary at that moment for that individual to impose a rhythm upon the group, because you can't have, in an emergency situation, everybody doing their own thing, right? If you understand rhythm, then you can learn how to break rhythm, or use the term broken rhythm, if we will. The thing about breaking rhythm is that when things just kind of get, when you have good rhythm, you can control it, you can manage it, right? Which will allow you to break the rhythm. Perhaps I tell you who's really good at breaking rhythm, and it's not even a martial arts. The Brazilian soccer team have, when I've watched them before, have an incredible sense of rhythm, an incredible rhythmic sense. And they will do that in a game. They will set a rhythm, and they will get things going. And then all of a sudden, bam, they will break that rhythm, and boom, 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 and all of a sudden there's a goal. It scores. So this is a sports team that really, really understands the rhythm. One sees sometimes in a tennis match, this rhythm gets set up, and bum, and bum, and bum, and bum, and all of a sudden, bop, and the person breaks that rhythm, and the opponent gets offset by it. So breaking rhythm can be done by either speeding up or slowing down the rhythm. You said a very fast-paced rhythm, and then all of a sudden, in the midst of that fast pace, you put a pause in there or slow it down, and it can offset the opponent. And vice versa is that you set a kind of a slow, steady rhythm to pull this person in, and then all of a sudden you break it. There's a very interesting thing is that in the original ideas or script for the silent flute, right? Remember the movie The Silent Flute, which was absolutely destroyed. But because I have some of the notes, I have some of Bruce's notes from that, was that he fights Changsha, the Rhythm Man, as it's known. And the way the notes were and the way they talk about it was exactly that. And that's why I know in the movie it was terrible, but they had a particular rhythm playing, bang. And Changsha could pull the opponent into this particular rhythm of moving with him and whatever, fighting. And then all of a sudden that rhythm would stop, or he would break the rhythm, and in so doing take out the opponent. So it obviously it never made it into the movie, and the movie was an absolute poor example
Yes.
of Bruce's original idea, but he was trying to put that in there about the ability to break rhythm of it, So so again, now we look at this is a very necessary ingredient, if you will. So kind of like when you were saying about the timing, well, how does one develop a sense of timing? Well, there's different ways. The first way is to get a really good understanding or pay attention to your own particular rhythms, the ways in which you do something. An athlete, again, a professional athlete, might record the video themselves to see the rhythms of their movements. Um, uh, a public speaker, one of the training tools of a public speaker is to videotape themselves and then watch the speed in which they're talking, watch the rhythm in which they're talking. Is it becoming all sort of monotone and everybody going the same way? Or do they have the ability to slow down and then suddenly speed up to make a particular point and then change the rhythm down? So, you have all of those. You have those ways of doing it. Observe other people, observe other people doing other things. And I always tell my students, when you're not, like if we're doing sparring or training drills and there's an odd man out, as we call it, so they're waiting outside, don't just stand around and look and oh, I'm over here, I'm over there. Pay attention, watch other people, choose one person and watch them and watch, like you said, things like their timing, but watch the rhythm at which they do particular things. That's a good exercise or a good drill. Even listening to music, listening to all types of music, which is why I like working out to all types of music, Western, Eastern, Asian. Some of the Indian music is incredible. I mean, because of the rhythms and simple to complex, but by listening to it, and paying attention to it, you start developing. Okay, it can help. I'm not saying it's a cure-all by any means, but practicing moving. As I said, I will give my students even a footwork exercise, a very simple footwork exercise, like a forward, lateral, and then forward movement, 3 movements, 1, 2, 3, and then I will have them do it in all of these different rhythms. Okay, so we'll do it slow, or slow. By slow, I don't mean really slow. I just mean steady. We'll move forward. We'll move lateral. We'll go forward. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll take the first one and we'll go slow. We'll go steady, and then we'll speed up the second 2. And then what we'll do is we'll take the first 2 slow and then speed up the third, and then we'll do the first 2 first, and then we'll break the rhythm on the third one. So whether it's a punching combination, whether it's a footwork, you're developing you can help your students develop a rhythmic sense of their actions, which then, as we know, you develop it, but then you have to relate that rhythmic sense in an alive situation against an alive opponent. But if you don't have it, how can you relate it, right? So cultivate a good sense of rhythm. Understand your rhythms. And then understand how the various rhythms, become aware of them. I think is a good, become aware of the rhythms in which you interact with other people, and then look at ways in which you can adjust those rhythms. So a very integral part of one's overall martial art arsenal again, So just,
Yeah, makes complete sense. And I think helps elucidate the so-called mysterious broken rhythm. You hear a lot about it, but hardly too many people demonstrating it. And
yeah, well, I think that sometimes terms get like Bruce drew terms from fencing and from boxing and or apply them to what he was doing, but sometimes they get taken out of context for what he was doing for what a fencer might be doing, and
yes,
and things of that nature. So certain terms. The bottom line is you can't break rhythm until you establish rhythm.
yes,
Otherwise, it's not broken rhythm. Yeah, and so that's what I mean. It's like breaking the rhythm of your actions is one thing. Breaking the opponent's rhythm, yeah, is something else. But some people, well, that's using broken rhythm. Okay, if you want to call it that, but the point is right. You're breaking their rhythm. So just get the understanding of rhythm. And as I said, you cannot break rhythm until you establish rhythm. So, and you see how boxers will set up things or MMA fighters will set up things, right? Fencers will try to set things up, and they'll try to get the opponent moving so that they can suddenly and then it lands. So yeah, timing, rhythm, they all interconnect. Speed, distance, timing, rhythm. Yeah.
I think this nicely brings us into the harmonizing of yin and yang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So wondering how we get into that now.
Well, again, it's I think from spending time studying and looking at it is just a clear understanding of yin yang. That's it's really not yin and yang, right? It's really yin yang because they're two indivisible parts of a singular whole, right?
A
They're
continuum.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. You know, which is why I said when you look at the diagram of it and what it means, but that's usually a one-dimensional image of something that's just alive all of the time. You know, so you know, they're not opposites, they're complementaries. So being able to interfuse yin and yang is, you know, being able to infuse, for want of a better term, softness with firmness, not hardness, but firmness. So, you know, if for example, I always like to tell my students, well, if I slip a punch, right? I'm using basically a yin action, right? For what it means, you know, hardness, softness, things like that. Yin being the softness, the heart, the that side of it. So if I slip the opponent's punch, I'm using a yin action. If, as I slip the opponent's punch, I land a finger jab to the eye or a punch to the face, then that is what Bruce refers to as the interfusion of yin and yang, right? The interfusion of them together. If I snap away from an opponent's punch with my body, I use a body evasive movement, right? To the opponent's coming with his yang energy, the punch coming out, and then I evade that punch using my body snap away, for example, then when their punch reaches its end, that yang starts to become yin as it's returning. My snapping away, which is yin, when I'm coming back or following that, moving in to attack them with a punch, that's yang. So, you know, yin becomes yang, yang becomes yin. It's just an integral part of what we do. You know, it's nothing supernatural or, you know, super metaphysical. I think people tend to make a much not. It's not that they make a much bigger deal over it. It's that they tend to try and take something that's really quite simple and make it really complicated. Because as humans, we have an inordinate capacity to do that sometimes.
I think it makes a lot of people feel important. That's the thing, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, again, it's I think you're right there, but the point is harmoniously, and that's the thing. Yeah, again,
Yes.
you know, if one watches Bruce's interview with Pierre Burton, the Canadian, when, you know, he's talking about the contrast of opposites, but the combining them and out of this new thing, or out of the combination of these things, something new may occur. I think that's a very clear understanding of it, you know, and you know, and as we know that each of these yin has a portion of yang within it, and yang has a portion of yin within it, and again, kind of like what we were doing, we were talking about how the yin yang, it's constantly moving and changing places, which is why Bruce put the arrows around the outside of the yin yang on the JKD logo was to illustrate the interchangeability of these things. So just what we finished talking about, you know, when one examines the yin yang, one sees a small part of it, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it starts to go small, and then the other side takes over. Yeah. Well, we just finished talking about that in that, you know, Tai Chi with the pushing hands and the absorbing the opponent's force, and then the moving back in, and those terms. When the opponent expands, I contract. When they contract, I expand. Yeah, those are interfusion of yin and yang, or yin yang. So again, I think that's a very integral part of understanding martial arts as a whole. I don't care if you're talking about Jeet Kune Do or any particular art. I just think it's
Integral.
yeah, integral part in understanding them.
Yeah. Yeah, if in that particular interview with Bruce, I remember when he was talking about yin and yang, it's like you might as well just be talking about alchemy, because something new emerges, because every time these things mix, they mix in a unique and different way
Yeah,
based on these two opposing forces, and that's what makes it so magical.
yeah. I think what makes it so magical too in the terms is that because it's so simple or ordinary, right? I love there's a quote when Dan was doing a demonstration with Bruce, and Bruce was illustrating the finger jab and how he would do it on demonstrations, and he was very, very much knew how to please an audience and surprise an audience, and he was talking about going to talk about the finger jab. So he was doing push-ups on all of his fingers, and then slowly taking fingers away till he was down to 2 fingers on one hand and thumbs and things like that, and then gets up and says, "Yeah, so now the fingers are strong, but what good are they if you can't reach an opponent?" And suddenly just launches this finger jab at Dan from Dan's like 8 feet away. It's he talks about it in one of his books, and that the people just can't believe it. But Bruce's comment was, sometimes the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and I think in some ways that relates to the yin yang. Is, man, once you understand it, God, it fits everything. And as we talked about, for me, once you understand the idea of the yin yang, what it means, what it stands for, you can apply it to anything in your life. I don't care what it is. Religion. It doesn't matter what religion a person is. I think I mentioned it before because somebody told me that came into my school once. I gave them a flyer. It had the yin yang emblem on, and they were, "Oh no, I can't take that. That's satanic." And I was like, I just was gobsmacked, because I was thinking, or I said, if you understand what this means, it does not matter what religion you are. It will make you more of it. So yeah. Super integral part of JKD, super integral part of life. Yeah.
I call it the elegance code, because when you get simple enough and you can then be elegant with it, that's yin and yang, because there's harmony and there's no need to make something complex.
Yes. Yeah. That was it? I think it was Da Vinci. Said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Yes, it is the
Right?
ultimate. Yes.
Yeah. So
I think that probably inspired my comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is. You look at things that are so ornate, and then you look at things that are so simple, and the simplicity is incredible. So yeah.
Yeah. The images of Japanese tea gardens come to mind.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes, absolutely, just one plant or one rock, and it just transforms the whole piece.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. It's amazing, the sensibilities.
Yes.
That You go into places and there's things everywhere, as you said, and it doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, I love walking through a Japanese tea garden or a Japanese garden, but at the same time, I love walking through a lush tropical forest where there's so much around you. So again, to me, yin yang, so.
Sorry, I had a
Oh,
call come through. I had forgotten to silence my phone.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think that brings us towards our last sub-principle, Sifu Chris, where you talk about the idea of how we enhance your vehicle's overall performance,
Mm-hmm.
bringing all of it together under this sub-principle.
Well, we talk, enhancing the vehicle's performance. We discussed before that, for a martial artist, their body is their instrument, it's their vehicle, whatever one chooses to call it, right? With which they express themselves. So you have all of these performance skills, tools and performance skills that one uses, but these other things we're talking about are the things that underlie everything that you do. The underlying ingredients. That's why sometimes they're referred to as essential qualities and things like that. So I mean, there's multiples. I think I put about 8 or 10 in the book, and again, some of them cross relate, but they might have a slightly different purpose. But I mean, if you want to go through, a few of them, I mean, primary first one would be strength, right? Okay. Because again, this is something that underlies everything you do. You can have all the technique in the world, but if you don't have the strength to carry it out, then again, it's going to be for naught. So strength is again the ability to move a load or do whatever it is. For a martial artist, you have physical strength, you have mental strength, and you have emotional strength. There's all different kinds. You have strength of character. You have strength of will. This person's resolve to do something. You have strength of patience. So strength, fundamental fact or fundamental element. Very, very important. So develop it. How a person chooses to develop it. Well, that's a very personal thing. All one has to understand is that there is a fundamental principle for developing strength, and that is overload and adapt. If it's your muscles, you overload them to a degree, and then you step back and you allow them to adapt. So when people get into arguments over training and training this and training that, that's a underlying ingredient behind strength training. So strength, power. Well, power is simply being able to utilize your strength with speed or quickly. So again, we could go back to you're an incredibly strong martial artist, but you don't have the speed. So the ability to use that speed, the ability to use that strength becomes negated somewhat. Power is the successful combination of force and timing, right? Like we said, power and hitting, mass times velocity, things of that nature. The faster you can move that mass, the more power it's going to have behind it. Power is also, to paraphrase my friend John Little in his book Body by Science. Power is an explosiveness, right? Could be another word for it. It's a marriage of capability and intention. So yeah, the capability is developing the muscles, the laying down the neural groove of it, and then the intention is the doing of it over and over and over again, right, to help that. And then the intention that you put behind it to hit hard and things like that. So you have, like we said, mass times velocity, things like that. Developing your strength, developing your ability to move with that strength, things like that, right? So you coordinate those elements into a cohesive unity, and that's basically the idea behind power. I mean, you can relate all of these, which I do in my book, to, which is why I did it that way, to there you go, to life and to business. You can have a powerful business, or a business that has a lot of strength, but if they don't have the ability to move what they're doing or how they're doing it quickly, then they don't have the power. So there's things of that nature. The third factor, or the third essential quality, endurance, right? And endurance is very, very simply defined as one's capacity to reduce fatigue. So endurance capacities, having high endurance capacities, allows you to do what you are doing or what you want to do for a longer period of time. There's two sayings. One is a boxing. Actually, I think they're both boxing sayings. One is fatigue makes cowards of us all, right? And the other one, and I do remember the boxing coach of the Filipino Kali Academy, Art Sachs, was saying this, and that is, when endurance goes out the window, everything else usually goes with it or follows it. You can't have the tactical elements because you're too tired. You can't focus. You can't move, things like that. So developing levels of endurance are very, very important. I think the other thing is that people should understand is that high levels of endurance allow you to recover faster from what you are doing, because you high that you can be tired, but your recovery ability can be faster than if you don't have it. So it's like I said, it allows you to do what you want to do for longer periods of time. It allows you to recover faster from what you're doing, right? And it gives you, for want of a better term, that endurance allows you to persist and persevere longer. So in developing your endurance capacities, again, you develop a willpower to persist as well, which again, so all of these, I think all of these have as much, like we were talking about the interfusion of yin yang, there's a physical component to it, and there's a mental component to every one of these qualities. It's a basic fact that one can develop overall endurance capacities doing multiple things, but the best way for developing endurance for something you want to do is to do that event. You could go and ride a bike because things are very specific. So if your goal or your objective is to be able to go 3-minute rounds of striking the focus gloves or the heavy bag, going riding a bike, no. The best thing would be to go 5 rounds on that bag continuously and striving to go harder or do whatever it is. And the more you do it, you might start off where you can only do 2 rounds or 3 rounds, and then you're getting tired. But again, you persist, you persevere, and it's specific to what you're doing. I think we saw very clear examples of that. There used to be a television show back in the, God, I don't know if it was the 80s or the 90s, and it was like sports superstars, and they would have them compete in all different events, right? So you would have this bodybuilder who was amazingly strong, couldn't ride the bike, could not, or did not have, just gassed out on riding the bike, or swimming. You get this person who was a phenomenal cyclist, but they get into the water and same thing, they're gassed out, and because it's specific to what you're doing. So building up the strength of your muscles, right, can allow you to swim more or whatever, but the building up of the endurance of it will come from the specific endurancing or the specific activity itself. So I mean that's a kind of a fundamental thing on that a lot of people don't pay attention to. I can give you a really good example of that, right? We were talking about is that I have a student come to my school, or a brand new person comes in. So we're kicking the kicking shield for a 3-minute round, let's say. And this person is, again, they're exhausted within 1 minute. They're breathing hard, they're leaning over. And what's the first thing that most of them end up turning around saying? I got to go to the gym and develop my endurance. It might work on my cardio. And again, it's not that, it's the specificity to what you're doing. So just keep in mind that endurance can be very, very specific.
Yeah. That's a great example.
Yeah. People always do that. I hear it all of the time. And when I explain to them, they almost don't believe it. It has nothing to do with that. Your body's over mobilizing its resources. It doesn't know what it's doing right now. And so you're exhausting yourself. And the next time you go out, and the next time, and the next time, and the next time. So if you want to do something, just honestly, keep doing it. Other aspects we can talk about, flexibility. Okay, it's an important facet for or element for a martial artist, right? Or any athlete for that matter, because it allows the joints to move freer. Greater, extends your movement capacity, your range of movement, things like that. Also can reduce the potential of injury. Again, if your shoulder is used to going through that range of motion, or your legs, sometimes when people slip on ice, right, and they'll pull a muscle, a lot of times it's because their muscles' range of motion has suddenly gone beyond what it's used to. So the body reacts and freezes up, and then an injury occurs. If that muscle is more used to going through an extended range of motion, there's less of a chance or a possibility for that. Um, so if you've got the speed, again, we could go back to, if you've got the speed, but your range of motion is restricted, again, it is a limitation of sorts because it's holding you back. So you have physical flexibility, but you also have mental flexibility and emotional flexibility. Mental flexibility, again, is your ability to stretch your attitude, stretch your thought processes, to stretch your mind and to see things. And so and then emotional flexibility is about
Chris, if you can hear me, your browser has stopped recording.